Drivers, start your engines. You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. and I'm welcoming you to taking a lap of the extra mile for today, March 25th, 2021. Well, folks, we're about halfway through the March Madness tournament. Sweet 16 is coming up. Unfortunately, the men's Maryland Terrapins team is out. The women's team, however, is kicking the crap out of everyone. That's great. And it's about to get some madness at Bristol, as long as we can keep the rain away, of course. And the Formula One season is finally about to start, and Red Bull's going to take over and just win the F1 championship. No, they're not. Let me not even tell that lie. We'll see what happens with the Red Bull team this weekend at Bahrain. But, of course, to help me talk about it, I have to welcome in my co-host, back from baby duty temporarily, Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. Gentlemen, welcome in.
Hey. What's going on, everyone?
Good to hear from you guys once again. Hope you're doing great. How was your guys' week so far?
Really good on my end. Tired, good.
I just want to see some racing this weekend.
All right, it looks like there is some sort of echo coming in for some of these. I think I'm going to turn the second channel off. You just do it that way. So you guys talk real quick.
Hello.
Well,
Yeah.
I got caught up on my sleep Sunday at 3 o'clock. I don't know about you boys.
We're going to talk about that. I actually stayed awake for most of the episode. We got the situation figured out, so we're good to go on there as far as technical issues. Sorry about that there. Had to do a little on-the-fly maintenance there. We've seen that kind of in Formula One.
I will say I am suffering with allergies right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so the echo is gone. Cool. Thank you, T. So we can go ahead and get started with the show. I'm suffering with allergies as well, Michael. Michael and I are seasonal allergy sufferers, which means this time of year is always horrible, and I always get reminded back to 2020. Of course, we started the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the symptoms of the pandemic was a dry cough. What do Michael and I both have? A dry cough. So I'm sitting there in the office, of course, dealing with my allergies because I haven't been able to get into the store yet to get to my Claritin that I desperately need because everyone wants to steal all the toilet paper and crap. And I'm sitting in the office and I have to because of my allergies, and people look at me like I'm dying, and I'm like, guys, it's just allergies. It's not Rona.
Give me the toilet paper, or else I'll cough near you.
I should have tried that, actually. Well, no, the toilet paper was all
Chris.
gone when I got to the store. Oh, boy. But, yeah, that is how things are. So we've got our technical difficulties situated. We're going to go ahead and get into the show. We've got a lot to get into tonight. We're going to start with NASCAR really quickly. And Christopher, as he said there, caught up on some of his sleep with the Volkswagen Quick Trip 500 at Atlanta. I didn't think it was that bad of the race, and it presents a quandary that I think we deal with when it comes to NASCAR fans for a while. NASCAR fans always talk about how they want tracks where, especially when it comes to the intermediates, where they're wearing and there's a lot of tire management and the drivers have to really drive the cars. And we go to Atlanta. It's a 500-mile race. It's a dead surface. It's not a dying surface. It's a dead surface. So managing the tires is extremely important. We get the race everybody wants, or what they say they want, and then you go to Twitter and it's everyone complaining that, oh, it's a boring race, or, oh, this track is so bad, and, oh, the 550 package. Folks, we've had races like this at Atlanta with 900 horsepower and spoilers that are as big as the one on my Toyota Corolla, which is not very big. Actually, doesn't exist, to be honest. And we've still had these races at Atlanta. The package is not the problem at Atlanta. The problem at Atlanta is that the surface is desperately needing a repave, but y'all won't let them do the repave because you think the race is going to be boring. So we're stuck in a vicious cycle of, if we repave, the race is going to suck, but the race sucks because we don't have any grip in the racetrack. I don't know how you guys feel. We can start with Christopher and go to Michael, but it feels like we're in a quandary on how we want the races to be, and it feels like another situation of NASCAR fans wanting both sides of the same stick, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And NASCAR fans seem to want those tired racing surfaces at Auto Club in Chicago, but Atlanta, rightfully so, is a little bit of a snooze, and they definitely turned their back on it. But not to trash our fan base here, but NASCAR fans really don't know what they want, and I almost applaud NASCAR for realizing that, because everybody knows NASCAR died with Dale, and we're all just here looking for something to do on Sunday.
Yeah, I've heard that one a lot. Michael, what do you think?
I think they should just repave the track. The racing is kind of getting a little meh, and it's gone years without a repave. Let them repave the track. We want some good racing at Atlanta. Atlanta was one of my favorite tracks, and every time we go there these last couple of years, it's just been a snore fest. Guys, just let them repave the track.
It's time. It is time to repave Atlanta. It's been past time, actually, to repave Atlanta. There's talks that they might reconfigure it due to what's going on with a potential property down there, putting a casino with the racetrack, so it might go back to old Atlanta. Here's what you do. Reconfigure it to what Atlanta used to be, which is basically what Homestead Miami is. Put the progressive banking in, like at Homestead Miami, and now you've got a great racetrack once you weather it in after a couple of races, especially now that you're going to have 2 races a year, so you're going to have cars running on it. And also, it gets really hot in Atlanta during the summer. I don't think you guys realize. I don't know if people realize that. It's really going to bake that track in. So a couple of summers, you're going to have some real good racing in Atlanta. So to speed you up on what happened in the race, because there wasn't a lot. Kyle Larson dominated the race until 8 to go. Ryan Blaney pipped him for the win and takes the win in the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500. We now have 6 different winners in the 6 races. We might get to that 16-win plateau by the end of this season, by the way it's looking. But I do want to touch on Xfinity for a little bit. I know we're rushing through this, but Christopher kind of ran out his Honey Let Me Do time on Tuesday for the interview we got, so I want to make sure he doesn't get in any trouble, especially with the baby over there. So I'm trying to rapid fire this right now. But Saturday, and to steal something from Gridiron Heights that you may have seen on YouTube and also Urinating Tree, yes, Patrick, there's been another Noah Gragson thing. This time, Gragson and Hemrick are coming to pit on the last stops of the day. Hemrick accidentally runs into the pit box. Gragson either intentionally or accidentally throws it in reverse and hits Hemrick's car as his crew is coming around. His crew did not like that. Daniel Hemrick did not like that. Hemrick and Gragson get into a fist fight at the end of the race, which causes a whole lot of drama. Gragson then takes to Twitter to say that it wasn't on purpose. Hemrick said he knocked a hole in the front of my car, so I gave him a black eye. Now we're even. Fellas, we've talked about it twice now when it comes to Noah Gragson, and I've said it. He's got a lot of speed. He is not going to last if he cannot get this maturity issue thing under control.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, how come, it's not even like we're talking about like a Kyle Busch or even like a Dale Earnhardt where at least what they were doing was on the track. I mean, you're on pit road and you're doing that. Like, come on, man. I think it was intentional. You see people on Twitter saying, "Oh well, they can't see well out the back window and stuff." Well, they manage all race, so I don't want to hear that he couldn't see where he was going. Argument that if he couldn't see where he's going, he shouldn't even be in a race car. It was completely intentional. Noah Gragson should have been thrown out of playoff contention for that, in my opinion.
And Noah hasn't been on Twitter the last few days because he's got a whole nother mess that is broken out from some old tweets that have popped up. We aren't going to talk about it fully here because I've not been able to verify the authenticity of some of the information, but it is extremely grave implications with whatever Noah may have done here, which could possibly get him into some serious trouble. So we don't want to talk about it fully because we just don't have the fully information. I don't have it verified, so I don't want to get into it fully. But Michael, what is this? What has to happen for someone at Junior Motorsports or someone else in NASCAR to take Noah aside and say, dude, this is not going to get it done?
I sometimes I have to say maybe you have to do the Formula One aspect and do a one race ban, or maybe a stern talking to. I know that NASCAR owners are a lot more in your face of a driver, so I just think maybe even Dale Earnhardt Jr. might have to come and say, look, what are you doing out here, because it's not what we want.
Well, I have to assume that his sister Kelly, who kind of runs Junior Motorsports, I mean, I have a feeling she's been pulling him into meetings and telling him, like, hey, this is not acceptable. But I have to agree with you. I think that, they might have to sit him out, healthy scratch him for a race or two and tell him, what you're doing is unacceptable. Not only are you hurting your own reputation, but you're hurting ours as well as a whole team. And, you see all the things about how, in 2 years or whatever, Noah Gregson's going to come up to Hendrick. Larson's character issues aside, Rick Hendrick's not putting Noah Gragson in a car when he's pulling those stunts on the track and off the track.
They've got to get it figured out. At the end of the day, like, Noah, I think he's a good kid. He's had several off-track incidents, including this most recent one that haven't been able to verify, so we're not going to keep talking about it. But he's had one verified incident that happened at the Snowball Derby in 2019 that rubbed everybody the wrong way. We've seen what he's done on the track. I want to like him, but he keeps getting into trouble. And I want to talk about something really quick. There was an article that came out from Jenna Fryer, and I have to talk about this narrative that, oh, Noah's just a dynamic personality and it's good for the sport and we need villains and everybody else is so vanilla. Look, Kyle Busch is a villain. Noah Gragson is a dick. Excuse my language. But there's a difference between a villain and a dick. Noah Gragson just makes everybody mad. Like, it's not that, yes, he's good, but he continuously gets into trouble that makes everyone, just pisses everybody off. Kyle Busch, on the other hand, yes, he's had his incidents, but at the end of the day, he's still a really good driver, and he's a guy that everyone loves to hate. Noah right now is in a situation where everyone just hates him. That's not good. And I need people to stop thinking that that is something that needs to be aspired to. Because you can have a dynamic personality and not turn off 95% of the people that see you. Okay, he's not on the Kyle Busch track. He's on the Kurt Busch track. And I think we all remember where Kurt Busch was in the early 2000s. He was almost
yeah. Sorry to cut you off, though. I just remember those days.
I mean, you could say that about a lot of drivers when they were younger. Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Tony Stewart. I mean, a lot of those guys that we consider maybe not all of them villains yet, but villains in their own. They went through
Jeff Gordon from time to time even got into a bit of some scuffles.
Yeah, but the weird thing about Jeff Gordon is that really happened late in his career where he was fighting people. Like, he did have, like, the one incident with Tony Stewart, but, like, late in his career, it just seemed like every couple of seasons, Jeff Gordon was fighting somebody. Like, remember what happened with Clint Boyer and Brad Keselowski? But remember, he also had to run in with Matt Kenseth one season. That was weird, because Jeff usually didn't have that many issues.
And then there was the Matt Kenseth one. I don't know if you remember that one at Bristol. I think you were talking about that one, actually.
Yeah, that was...
Where he shoved Matt Kenseth.
Yeah, that's when he had the helmet on. Which he's gotten into some scuffles, but it's not on a what seems to be a regular basis like Noah Gragson right now. Yep. And before we go, because I know Christopher's got to go and we have to go take a break, I do want to quickly touch on the Bristol Dirt race. This is going to be insane if we can get the race in, because the weather is not looking good. And folks, unlike an asphalt track, there is no drying a dirt track when it gets too wet. When they lose this track, or if they lose the track, it's lost. So I want them to get the races in Saturday and Sunday. This could end up being a Monday show. I hope it's a Monday show, because Tuesday through Thursday do not look good either. But guys, this is going to be a lot of fun when they get this race off.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a lot of. I've seen the Pro Invitational series that happened yesterday. Mm-hmm. It looked like a lot of fun. Like, I really want to watch this race.
I think that I think that this is going to be similar to a plate race in the sense that it's all about where you are when the accidents happen, because I've got an over-under set right now at 18 cars finishing the race, and I think I'm on the underside of that. I think we're going to have less than 18 cars on the track at the end of this race. And when I do my nearest to win pick, it's going to be basically the guys that I think can get out front and stay out of the pack, because I think this is going to be a demolition derby.
I think we can see the over, but I'm going to take the over, but only just. But we will see what happens. But we've got to take a break. And before we go, of course, I want to thank our sponsor, Legacy Financial. If you want to get your financial plans in 2021 off right, hit up our friends at Legacy Financial. They can be contacted on Twitter at Legacy_Uncut or called at 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. Christopher has got to roll out, but before we let him go, Christopher, who do you think is going to win the Bristol Dirt race this weekend?
So, like I said, demolition derby time, and I'm going to pick a guy who I think is just going to get out front and be able to stay away from the chaos. And as much as I hate to say it, I think it's going to be Kyle Larson, but in my heart, I am praying for obviously either Alex Bowman, but Christopher Bell.
All righty, well, Christopher, thank you so much for joining us. Michael and I will be back later on in the show to talk about F1 and give you our nearest the win picks. We're going to talk about that in the third segment. But when we come back, we have a special interview to commemorate Women's History Month as we talk women in racing. We'll be right back after this, right here on The Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio. Your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back here on IE Sports Radio. You're listening to The Extra Mile, and March is Women's History Month, and we would be remiss if we left this month without talking about women in motorsports. We've seen a growth in how women participate in this sport the last few years with drivers like Danica Patrick, Alexis DeJoria, the Force Daughters, and more taking to racetracks all over this country. But it hasn't been smooth sailing. Women have had to deal with a lot of discrimination when they go into jobs, and unfortunately, racing, as we've seen on social media, has been one of them. For this topic, we hooked up with Chrissi Luttrell of Fast Lap with Chrissi and Deb. We talked a little bit about the issues that women face on social media and being a racing fan, but we also talked about some of the badass women that are getting things done in the motorsports world. So enjoy this, and we'll be back in about 30 minutes with Michael and I's thoughts on Formula One. So enjoy this interview. We will be right back. Hi, Chrissi. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. First question, I want to start off. How did the Fast Lap podcast come together?
So it kind of happened by like a happy accident, I guess, because I had recently started writing a little bit for my friend Rob Tiongson at the Podium Finish, and Deb had started writing for Matthew Burrows at Saben.com. And I noticed she started looking for females in NASCAR and female fans to answer a couple questions from an article she was doing about, females in motorsports, and, specifically NASCAR. So we had already been following each other. I responded to it. We talked a little bit. And then I have to say it because she, dies every time because I throw her under the bus, but she never used my little questionnaire thing. She never put me in her thing, and she always gets mad. She's like, oh, you got to bring it up. I'm like, but it's part of the story. Anyway, that's besides the point. So I just, we kind of talked a little bit and became friends, and then I was like, hey, I kind of want to do a podcast, because I thought about doing, a blog thing with, kind of mom stuff. I was trying to figure out something. I knew I wanted to do something creative. I just couldn't figure it out. And then I figured I like talking, and it's easier to talk for me than to write and type. So it takes way more time. So I messaged Deb, and I randomly thought of her. I was like, oh, I bet she'd be fun to do a show with. She seems to have a lot in common with, what I like, my thoughts and stuff on a lot of things. And I reached out and asked if she'd want to do one. And she was just like, okay. And that was it. And yeah, that's how it happened. And here we are.
So I wanted to ask you specifically about social media, and specifically even in that more geared towards Twitter. So what are some of the trends or negative things that you've seen that are specifically aimed towards women? And just for the example, something that I see a lot is all of the Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney fans. I see like, oh, you only like him because he's good looking and stuff like that. Is that really the bulk of what you see, or in your experience, do you get other things coming towards you, or notice other things as well?
I do see a lot. That is probably the most prevalent of the issues, is the judgment of female fans for who they like. And there are those fans out there that are primarily just like, hey, he's a good-looking dude, cool. And that's fine, but it's not. There's a lot of females that you find based on who they interact with and the conversations they have that do genuinely have an interest in motorsports, in NASCAR. They like it for what it is, and yeah, okay, so the dude's good looking, that's a bonus, great, whatever, but not everyone is into that. But I do also see some guys that like to retweet girls' opinions and basically say, stupid stuff like, oh, you don't need to have an opinion, you belong in the kitchen. And it's just, stuff like that, where if someone disagrees with us, they're going to be harder on us and tell us we're wrong because we don't understand it, or make us sound like we don't belong. And I've seen that a couple times, and it's just, God, it gets so old. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. It's something that I see a lot, and I'm sure Daryl does as well. And another thing that we see, or at least I've seen in other sports as well, is that when a female expresses interest in that team, no matter what sport it is, there's always that guy that's got to come in and be like, oh, well, name every starter on the team, name all the backups, who's the coach, and it's like, you would never ask me that. You would never ask Daryl. Is that something that you've experienced quite a bit of, or?
Not in that sense. That's been something I dealt with a little bit when I was more into football, because I'm a Giants fan. But I wasn't really as active with football as I am with NASCAR. But so I don't really see it like that. It's just more of fans that think we don't know what we're talking about, or we're just stupid girls who have crushes on these drivers, who cares? Like, that's, they just want to judge you because of stupid things. Anyway, it's annoying.
I mean, hey, saying Ryan Blaney's not a good-looking guy that's ignorant. Ryan Blaney is a good-looking guy.
Right? Yeah, I mean, that's like just a thing. Yay, it's an opinion. He's a good-looking dude. Don't really. That's not why I like my drivers, because I have a favorite, but I like a lot. I enjoy seeing a lot of different drivers have success. So it's kind of frustrating. And that's the other thing. If you like multiple drivers, people want to give you crap for that. Like, what do you mean I have to just have one driver? Like, yeah, Chase Elliott is my personal favorite for reasons that have nothing to do with his looks. And I like Denny Hamlin. I like Kyle Busch. I like Martin Truex Jr. It's my family's driver, so I get just as excited when Denny wins, as I do for Chase. Maybe a little more for Chase, but I'm excited because it makes my son Ronan happy, and that makes me happy. So it's frustrating.
So not to get off topic. Sorry. Not to get off topic, but can you bring us back to Martinsville a couple years ago? I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean.
Where's the balance there?
Here's the thing. Back then, Ronan wasn't necessarily into Denny Hamlin. He was pretty young at the time, so he had started developing his interest in NASCAR because it would kind of mesmerize him when he'd be sitting up watching it with his dad. So I did not like Denny Hamlin. I was not a fan, not happy, but I do now, looking back, I do see, both sides, whatever. But he's grown on me. It took me a while to get over it, but he has grown on me the past couple of years, and he has come out of nowhere with his personality lately, and I am loving every minute of it because he doesn't care. He just pokes fun at everyone. I love it.
Yeah, I don't know where this new sassy Twitter Denny Hamlin came from. Maybe it's because he's been hanging out with his driver Bubba Wallace a lot more, but that is rubbed off on him. It's hilarious.
You know,
Kyle
he's
been coming
actually,
I said Kyle Busch is right there with it too, though. If you saw that,
yeah. Kyle Busch has always had that very dry, serious, I don't give a F sense of humor, and like he knows what he's doing when he gives these replies, and it's hysterical. I love it. But like, I just wanted to also comment. I noticed Sassy Denny starting to come out. Not this past season, but 2019. Can't believe it's already that long ago. But when we went to the NASCAR Awards in Nashville, his red carpet interview, he was cracking everyone up. He was being, I don't know if he might have been drunk, but he looked like he was having a good time. He had a big smile on his face. He made jokes at the actual ceremony. He brought the big piece of tape up and made fun of himself for what happened with the tape on the nose of the car. And I was like, where did he come from? He is hilarious. I love it. It's fun. It's a change from like the angry NASCAR stuff. Like he's just having a good time.
And that is nice to see drivers starting to really enjoy themselves on social media, because especially the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of people, especially in that Xfinity series, that have been mad online, usually at Noah Gragson. Yeah. But going back to social media, we've seen it, I think all three of us, how NASCAR Twitter can be. On race day, it's a great place. The rest of the days out of the week, you just don't want to sign in. You're like, oh, there's another pointless controversy. Let me not get into this. How do you deal with that, especially with some of the controversy, or a lot of the controversies recently have been dealt with women fans in the sport either dealing with issues with, I'll say, the YouTubers in the community or other fans in the community that have just said awful stuff in the past? And how do you process, how do you navigate that as a fan?
I use the mute button a lot. I don't really block people, because if I'm going to block you, you have to have a reason. So I mute people that I just don't care to see. And I have seen a trend there's a couple different circles. It sounds like I swear this is it's like junior high school or high school. Like, I feel like there's these different groups that some of them spill into each other, but it tends to be the same group of accounts that respond to certain things. Whether it's negative, I tend to see the same group of people always in the comments, or, retweeting, positive stuff. I tend to see a lot of the same people, because those people are all about, we just want to be good. We want to lift each other up, ignore the drama. And then there's like the mix of both. And then there's like the podcasters. We're over here like, leave me out of it, please. And it's like, it's interesting if you think about, and this sounds nerdy, but like the sociology of it. Like if someone were, and I'm sure they are, like in depth, like studying and researching like this behavior, like it's so like, sorry, that's getting deep. But anyway, I mute a lot of people, and I don't care for drama. It's toxic. All you need to do is like make the wrong comment on something or like the wrong tweet, and then it's like, bring out pitchforks. So I just avoid it. I want nothing to do with it. I just want to enjoy my friends, my drivers, my show, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, just to peel back the curtain a little bit, I am an African-American fan, so of course I am a huge fan of Bubba Wallace, and
absolutely.
You've seen it. Christopher, you've seen it as well. It gets to the point, if I see, a post and they're talking about Bubba Wallace, I will like it, I'll share it, I'll read the story. I will not go in the comment section. I just will not do it to myself, because it's just the worst.
Ugly.
Yeah, it's the worst type of stuff. If I had a nickel for every time I heard Bubba Smollett after the stupid thing.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then people that add nickel for every account that had it as their like name or something.
Yeah. Oh, precisely.
I mean, I could pay back my student loan as soon as I get out of college. That's how many nickels I'd have. But
right.
That kind of goes into my next question. So we've got drivers like Natalie Decker and Haley Deegan and Gracie Trotter they're coming up through the ranks. We know Natalie's first truck season was not the best, and I will tell on myself, we poked a little bit of fun of that on our show, you know, with everything happened at Bristol, her getting turned by the tow truck and all of that. But the way people will discuss them and the way their performance has been, to me, it feels a lot different than if a male driver were to be in the same situation. I don't know if you've noticed that as well. Where do you think that comes from?
I think it's because, again, we're not expected, and it's hard for people to accept that women can be interested in and just as good at, as men in motorsports. And so we're under scrutiny because it's like, I don't want to say it's jealousy because I don't want to call people out that I don't know. Like, everyone, I'm not going to say everyone's jealous, but there could be a little bit of it, like, oh, how's this chick, how can she get into this? Like, she sucks. She's not going to be able to do it. Especially with the whole stereotypical, women drivers suck. Ha, ha, ha. Women drivers can't park. They hit curbs. So there's always that kind of stereotype that women suck at driving. And then for us to be trying to make a name for women and themselves in the world of motorsports, whichever way it goes, it's like we have to, in a lot of things in life, we have to work harder to prove, we don't just show up and it's like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, great. Happy for you. It's like, no, we have to prove why we're allowed to be in the sport. And that's the vibe that I get from the fact that people are willing to nitpick Natalie apart for the stupidest things. Like, she'll post a picture of herself at Daytona and there's people in the comments telling her she needs to stop trying to be a model, stop taking pictures and get to work and get in the car and get on the simulator, and they're ripping her apart. Like, that's awful. And then you want to act like mental health stuff doesn't exist. Like, this is awful. I don't care how okay someone says they are. Like, that gets old, and it drives me insane because it's like a male would not get the same. I mean, they do get ripped apart, but it's not the same way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I've never seen somebody on Twitter point out like, oh, so-and-so, specifically like a male, got his sponsorship because he's an attractive, young-looking guy. But I have seen 100 tweets, oh, the only reason Haley Deegan's sponsored by Monster is because she's hot. And then the same guys that would say, like, oh, the only reason you like Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott is because he's attractive. I bet you $100 you go to his profile and he's following on Twitter, all of the attractive, younger, your Natalie Deckers. He's following them. He's liking their stuff, especially where they're saying, stop trying to model and get in the truck. He doesn't like the post about the racing. He likes the post where she's in a bikini.
Right. Exactly. A bunch of hypocrites. There's hypocrisy sprinkled all over Twitter land, NASCAR Twitter land. And it's just like, there's like layers upon layers of NASCAR Twitter. It's crazy.
It's unfortunate. And the way I will phrase this next question is because at the end of the day, there's a lot of male fans that are perpetuating this stuff, and there's a lot of good male fans out there. I've seen them, to you guys out there. I'm not calling you out, but there's some more stuff that we could do. So from your perspective, what can guys like myself, Christopher, and all the other guys that are tired of seeing this crap, what can we do to help you guys have a more safe space in our community?
I think just kind of have our backs if, someone's trying to attack us or something, so to speak. And, I'm not calling for people to like jump in the comments and be heroes and attack people, but it's like, hey man, let it go. And being welcoming and, follow, female fans and have genuine interactions. Like, there's also dudes that are super nice and they're like, yeah, females in NASCAR are awesome. You know, oh, there's so many great females that I'm friends with, but then they're also in the DMs like, hey, are you single? Like, don't do that. Don't be that guy, okay? No one is on Twitter to find a boyfriend. And if they are, they're probably not in your age group. I'm just saying. Also, just, again, we like to have conversations about NASCAR and our opinions and go back and forth just like a couple of dude friends would. So, you know, don't treat us different, I guess. It's hard because social media, there's only so much you can do. So, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on social media that's just ridiculous, as we've heard. And you can just go down the comments of Hailie Deegan and Allie Decker specifically and just see stuff where you're like, if you were in person and this tweet was going to your mom, you would not say this type of stuff. You really wouldn't.
Right.
Like,
and most importantly, if you were in person, and would you say what you tweeted if you were face-to-face with Natalie Decker or Hailie Deegan? Because a lot of people are brave when they are behind a computer screen or a phone.
Would you say what you tweeted in front of Brian Deegan, Natalie's dad? Or yeah,
that. He'd have you in a chokehold so fast.
And by Natalie, I do mean Hailie. That was just was dad brain for a second.
Yeah. Or even Natalie Decker's. Yeah, or even Natalie Decker's father for that. For that matter, just the amount of stuff people will tweet out. And this could be a whole nother podcast special because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But that window of anonymity that social media has created has just allowed people to say the most wild stuff because they think they're not going to get in trouble. Like, it's crazy out here.
And we've seen multiple times people can get in trouble. Like, not everything that you've erased on the internet actually gets erased. And aside from that, just saying dumb things like, I don't know. It dumbfounds me how people, some of the things I read, like genuine, like trying to rip these people's hearts out, hateful comments, dragging their talent, trying to talk crap about why they don't deserve to be there. It's basically the equivalent of spitting in somebody's face. Yeah. And I give these women so many props. Like, we talked to Amber Balkin last week, and she opened up and said a lot of what she was working on training to get back to racing was mental health, because she said she can take a lot, but there gets to be a point where you can't take it anymore, and it's awful. And that goes the same way for, like, regular, drivers too. So
we actually had Amber Balkin on this show last year, actually. It's ironic that you say that. We had her on during our little COVID Red Flag series. Great interview. I hope she's doing well. She got into a major accident last season, but she's back racing now, thankfully. And let's go there. We've kind of brought the conversation down. Now we can bring it up a little bit. There's a lot of badass women. Yeah. There's a lot of badass women that are coming into this sport with, of course, Amber. We've already talked about Natalie Decker and Hailie Deegan, Gracie Trotter and Arca, Brianna Daniels getting it done on pit road. How does it feel now to see all these high-profile women coming into this sport? And what does it mean about the future of the sport that it's becoming more diverse, where we see more women getting in and doing great things? I know there's a woman that's working for Penske, and I cannot remember the name off the top of my head, that a lot of people think she might become the first woman crew chief. There's a lot of good things in the sport that are happening for women right now.
Absolutely. I love seeing all of these women coming out, and it's not just in one role, it's in multiple roles. Also, one of my favorite interviews was Priscilla. She's a tire specialist and also runs her own clothing company, Torqued. So throwing a plug in for her, go to torquedclothing.com. She's got awesome stuff for people who work in motorsports, like pants and stuff, that are really, really reliable. But she's got cute tees too. Anyway, it just makes me so happy to see women in multiple different various ways of being involved in the sport. Like, we're going to talk to Emily Butler this week spoiler. She is the head media director at Truex Management. So, there's people in the teams, in the pits, and media. And I agree. I would love to see a woman crew chief and car chief and spotter, just as well. And that's not me doing it with, women take over the sport. We don't need men. It's like, no, I just want to see a few of us in there in the mix, a healthy mix.
And the name I was looking for, I was actually looking that up while you were talking. It was Andrea Mueller, who I could not pull the name. They were talking about her a couple of weeks ago. A lot of people are talking about she might be the first female crew chief. And that's the important part that you said there at the end. It's not about taking over. It's about welcoming more people into the pool, because there's no gender bias for driving a race car. There's no racial bias for driving a race car. And yes, we know how NASCAR, where it's situated, how it's been built, but there's nothing that's saying the sport can't get more diverse. We've seen the positivity it could bring, because we were talking about this at the beginning. We've got Pitbull, who's part owning a team right now with Trackhouse. Michael Jordan, who's owned 2311. There's might be LeBron James, technically, with the Roush Fenway Group. So we've already seen how that's great on the diversity side. We could have, women owners, more women drivers, of course, and it's really going to help the sport grow that fan base into the future and what is a more diverse and more growing younger demographic that is coming up in this country.
I agree. And then also another thing that's been growing too, when you're talking about big names coming into the sport, how about some of the football players that are starting to invest? So we've seen a couple pop up. I believe it was Antonio Williams, who's sponsoring Joe Graff Jr. Forgive me if I'm wrong. And it's kind of fun to see. And then, you've got Michael Jordan with basketball background. You got football players coming in. Maybe other sports will start to take notice and be like, hey, what can, let's get involved. I think it'd be kind of cool to see sports kind of all intertwined in a way. They kind of do in a sort with when they share sponsors. But I don't know. I just think it's kind of fun to see the interest in investing in NASCAR. We need it. Lord knows we need it. And I'm really happy to see it in the smaller teams, because they need it the most. And that makes me happy. So, and I would love to see some more women-owned business sponsors, too. If I could afford it, I would totally sponsor a car with Fast Lap, but I cannot afford that. So
I would love it if we got to a racetrack and Fenty was on a car. I think that would be awesome for a lot of people. That's the first coming that came to my mind, because Rihanna, runs that clothing line. That'd be so awesome to see her sponsoring a car. And there's a lot that NASCAR is working towards. Of course, there's a lot of work that they still have to do. And the racing community as well. We know everything that's going on in Formula One. Again, that could be a whole nother podcast. In fact, it might be. So we may be calling you again. But before we get out of here, I do want to ask, we are coming up to the Bristol Dirt race. This has been talked about a lot. The weather is looking unkind right now, but we're praying it's going to be better by the time we get there to Saturday, Sunday. What is your temperature level going into this weekend's race?
Okay, so you might have to explain to me how you want me to answer that.
What is your feelings going into this race? Because Christopher and I, we both believe this is going to be chaotic.
Okay, I see where you're going with it. That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify, so I just want to make sure. I'm having a healthy, what would be the word? Healthy optimism, I guess, or pensive optimism. I'm optimistic that it will be exciting. I've seen and heard the dirt races so far have been wild. Deb said she was at the Dirt Nationals this past weekend, and she said there were cars rolling on the roofs. There were cars upside down a lot. There was fights. Shocking. There was fights in both races, apparently. And there's been a lot of chaos already. So I think there's a possibility for it. But we also have to remember the cars are a lot heavier and a different driving style. So I don't know. I think it's going to be wild, because you're going to see the guys with dirt experience driving one type of way, and then you're going to see guys who aren't the greatest on dirt try and figure out how to do it. So I think there's definitely going to be several cautions. So, but then a lot of people think they're going to be let down. So I don't know. We'll see.
So before we wrap up, so every week on the podcast, we play a game called Nearest to Win. And I don't know the rules. I just know how to play the game. Daryl could explain it to you. But so going into the Bristol Dirt race, who are you putting your money on this week?
Well, as much as the Chase fan and he wants to give it to him, he has not had the best luck on dirt this season, and that's to be expected. That's why he has been doing all this dirt racing, because he's trying to get better at it. He knows he's not that good. Anywho, with that said, the obvious choice would be somebody like Kyle Larson, but I'm torn between Alex Bowman and Ricky Stenhouse.
I like half that answer.
I go with Ricky because he owns a sprint team, and I think he's pretty good. I don't recall seeing him race much, but I'm sure he has. So I don't know. I think he's going to be a wild card, but I think Alex Bowman more because he's been steadily getting better, and he also now has Alex Bowman Racing, which is, on dirt. So he's been studying up on it. Obviously, if he wants to be successful, he's been learning about that style of racing. So I think he could pull it out. But I also wouldn't be shocked if Kyle Larson won.
So no love for Kyle Larson's biggest dirt rival, Christopher Bell.
Christopher Bell, he could be up there. I think there's going to be a lot of those names lumped together up in the front, kind of maybe mid-pack towards the front, couple sprinkled around. So it's going to be hard. It is kind of hard to choose one specific person, because I see where multiple different guys could win. I mean, you never know. It's Bristol, baby. Dirt.
All right, Chrissy, before we get out of here, where can people find you on social media, and where can people find the podcast as well?
Well, the podcast Twitter account is at FastLap_podcast, and my personal is at CT Luttrell, which is LUTTRELL 9. And then Deb's is, I believe it's at Deb Nicole 38. She's in Alfredo, Fast Pasta. So, yeah, that's our social media. We had a Facebook, but I got really busy. It's hard to keep up with it. So Twitter's probably the best way to reach us. The podcast should be on all major podcast apps, like iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, a whole bunch of them. So.
All right, Chrissy. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this podcast, and we're definitely going to have to do this again.
For sure. Next time we'll have to bring Deb on so she can hang out as well.
Definitely. That would be a lot of fun. All right. Take care.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
You too.
Yep.
All right, Chrissy, stay
Bye.
right there. I'm just going to kill this, and then we can say goodbye properly.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I want to thank Chrissy for joining us for that discussion. If you want to check out Fast Lap with Chrissy and Deb, it is available wherever podcasts can be heard. And we got about 6 minutes here. Probably going to go a little bit over, as we're going to talk about Formula One here for a little bit. We're starting with the Bahrain Grand Prix this weekend, and everyone has been talking about what's going to happen with Mercedes, and is Mercedes in trouble, and is Red Bull poised to take over as the new top team? And folks, we have done this song and dance before. The last 3 years, 2017, 2018, 2019, Ferrari has looked like the team that was finally going to supplant Mercedes. And a couple of times, they actually traded wins with them during a season. But when they got to the second half of the season, Mercedes would get their car developed and take over. We know what happened in the 2019 season when Ferrari suddenly got a run of form and Mercedes worked themselves to the point of near burnout to make a team and make a car, rather, that is capable of chasing down the new gains that Ferrari got. Now, We didn't realize at the time that the Ferrari gains were artificial, we'll call them, and the FIA smacked them down for it. And Mercedes, with their Ferrari killer, with no Ferrari to kill, destroyed the entire field last year. That is unfortunate for the sport of Formula One, because it got people talking about how boring it was, how Mercedes was so much better than everyone, da-da-da-da-da-da. Now we come into a season where Mercedes may be on the back foot. Red Bull has looked strong in testing, and I can't help but think we've been here before. We've been in the situation where we've talked about Mercedes being on the back foot. Mercedes isn't that strong this year. Oh, they've got problems with their car. They're going to slip down the order. Folks, until someone puts together a top-to-bottom season where they can beat Mercedes consistently, race in and race out, Mercedes is going to be the team to beat in the Formula One World Championship. Someone has to prove it to me, not on the testing charts, not even this week in Bahrain. They have to prove it going into Spain and Azerbaijan and Monaco and France and Austria and on into the season, that they can keep this team at bay. And when inevitably Mercedes gets on a streak and gets on that furious charge that they've done the last few seasons, where they have been challenged, usually in the second half of the season just after the summer break, someone's got to prove that they can weather the storm and win the championship. Then and only then, when someone actually does it, will I say that that team is now the team to beat. I'm not going to stand on projections when it comes to who can beat Mercedes in the World Constructors' Championship, because we've done it several years before and it hasn't worked out. And Michael, I'll throw this over to you. As I've said, we've been here before. Do you think this Red Bull team is for real, or is it just the calm before the Mercedes storm?
I think it's the calm before the Mercedes storm. I think Mercedes, during winter testing, they went back to the factory, looked at how everything went, and, fixed their car up and everything like that. So I think they're going to return in full force this season. Honestly, if Red Bull does have a faster car this year, congratulations. We have a race, but I do not see it, because Mercedes' development is just so strong. Mm-hmm. So I personally do not see it. But hey, if it happens, great, we got a race. But that's not to say that F1 is still boring. You can still watch the midfield race, see how that's all going on. Plenty of interesting battles there. So I think this season is going to be interesting from a midfield point of view.
And the midfield is going to be strong, with Aston Martin coming in, McLaren looking to do great things. Of course, Toro Rosso and Alfa Romeo will be there. Williams may be resurgent. We'll see what happens later on this year. There's going to be a lot of interesting battles in Formula One that are not with that top group, where it's usually one car just dominating nowadays. And it's been like that historically. Remember Ferrari in 2000 and 2004 just absolutely obliterated everybody. But if Max Verstappen does win the Bahrain Grand Prix, we'll have to put our money where our mouth is here in a couple minutes for nearest the win. Does that make him the odds-on favorite to win the championship? Because I'm not counting out Lewis Hamilton yet. If that Mercedes is even on parity with Red Bull, I've got Lewis Hamilton winning going away, to be honest. We've seen what he can do when he's been challenged 2017, 2018, and 2019 to a lesser extent. That car and that driver are put together. They are in sync. And Lewis Hamilton just does things with that car that is inhuman. Certainly things that his teammate can't do.
Right. I think Lewis, even if the Mercedes is slower, it's Lewis Hamilton. Like even if the car is slower, yeah, you got Lewis Hamilton to contend with, and Lewis Hamilton isn't going to take anything laying down. So if the Red Bull is on par with Mercedes, like I said, yeah, we have a race. But if it's not, what can you do?
Well, what we can say is this is going to be the last year of these regulations. We'll go to a new regulation set in 2022, and maybe things will change, or maybe it won't. We'll see when we get there. But it, of course, is time for Nearest the Win. For the first time, we've got multiple series to pick here, and I desperately need some points, but I keep picking guys I expect to win, and they don't win. Or they don't even finish well, so I can't even get the 1 point for highest non-winning finisher. So I'm going to play it super safe. For Formula One, Lewis Hamilton, taking Kyle Larson for the dirt race in Bristol whenever we get that race completed. Michael, who you got?
All right. You basically got my same picks. So, yeah, Lewis Hamilton, Kyle Larson.
All right, so we probably just IE Sports Radio jinxed that. Hey, we're up against it, so I'm not going to go into the long-winded ending tonight. Check out Fast Lap with Deb and Chrissy, or with Chrissy and Deb, rather. Thank you so much for Chrissi Luttrell for joining us for that interview. Follow Michael at Michael_War25. Christopher's at Fiji Sims. I'm at DK Jr. 12. And pardon our dust on the Extra Mile Twitter page. We're getting that set up so we can do some great things with that later on this season. You may have seen some of the polls that we've been coming out with. Make sure you get involved with those as well. Folks, thank you so much for joining me for yet another edition of the Extra Mile here on IE Sports Radio. For Crystal and for Christopher and Michael, I'm Daryl. Taryn is also taking Kyle Larson, so we just jinxed him, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.